Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Coming up, more legal trouble for Donald Trump as the New York Attorney General accuses his charitable Trump Foundation of being a personal piggy bank for the U.S. president and his children. Then the National Hockey League agrees to give $22,000 to former players suffering from concussions. The players say that's not enough. And a celebrity faith healer from Brazil, once featured by Oprah, turns himself into authorities on charges of rape and sexual abuse. I'm Jeannie Godula. This week saw new legal troubles for Donald Trump. New York's Attorney General accused his Trump Foundation of using charity funds to settle legal claims or buy personal artwork, and of using close to $3 million donated at a fundraiser for military veterans for Trump's presidential campaign. The lawsuit is seeking millions in restitution and penalties, and a bar on Trump and his children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, from serving on the boards of other New York charities. Now, also this week, new reports came out saying Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential campaign was more extensive and more focused on helping Donald Trump than previously known. Brian Quinn has the latest on this week's The Mueller investigation, with testimony from former FBI Director James Comey.
Another closed-door hearing for former FBI Director James Comey as Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives try to prove bias at the FBI over the agency's probe into Russian meddling during the 2016 presidential election.
So another day of Hillary Clinton's emails and the Steele dossier. This while the President of the United States is lying about the FBI, attacking the FBI, and attacking the rule of law in this country. How does that make any sense at all? Republicans used to understand that the actions of a president matter, the words of a president matter, the rule of law matters, and the truth matters. Where are those Republicans today?
Comey's testimony comes on the heels of two reports released Monday by the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee. One showing that Russian internet trolls specifically targeted African Americans in a bid to suppress votes for Hillary Clinton. The other showing that Russia used every major social media platform to influence the election in favor of Donald Trump. Trump has railed against the investigation led by former FBI Director Robert Mueller, calling it a hoax and a witch hunt. But Mueller's probe has made significant progress since its launch nearly 2 years ago. 4 members of Trump's campaign team have pled guilty to various charges, and indictments have been issued against 25 Russians. After midterm elections that saw Republicans lose their majority in the House of Representatives, 2019 will see Democrats take charge of key congressional committees armed with the power of subpoena, and the president's legal troubles could be just getting started.
Time now for our number of the week, 22,000. That is the dollar amount due to be paid out by the U.S.-Canadian National Hockey League to 318 of its former players. It's compensation for head injuries during their time on the ice. But many of those players say that amount is an insult coming from the NHL, an organization worth $4.5 billion. Our reporters have more now from Canada, where ice hockey is the national sport.
On garde le contrôle, on est là, mais on garde le contrôle, les Bleus.
Stéphane Lebeau has enjoyed some of his life's greatest moments on the ice.
First on puck.
It's also on the ice that some of his problems likely started. For years now, the former National Hockey League player has been plagued with health issues.
It's headaches, migraines, and lately small vision problems, slight memory loss. But the hard part is, well, I'm getting older. I'm 50 now. To what extent is my age or other factors having an impact on these issues? But given what we know now about concussions, these issues could very well be a direct consequence of all the concussions I suffered during my hockey career.
Some former NHL stars are sounding the alarm on concussions and its invisible injuries. Crippling depression has led some hockey veterans to commit suicide. Others are choosing to speak out.
What's the point of playing professional sports and It's supposed to be for the memories, you know? And you can't remember that anymore. It's really scary.
Carcillo's testimonial on the Players' Tribune struck a chord online, quickly surpassing 1 million views.
When I see injustice, I need to act. And I need to hold people accountable. The truth. Tell the truth.
Carcillo's target, the National Hockey League. He says while the NHL is turning its back on sick athletes, research proves there is a link between repeated injuries to the head and trauma. In Toronto, the Canadian Concussion Centre treats former professional hockey and football players. Dr. Carmela Tartaglia is a specialist in chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. Tartaglia believes the NHL is ignoring research on the topic.
Right now, the number one risk factor for chronic traumatic encephalopathy are multiple concussions. To deny that is a little bit worrisome because it really means that you haven't read the literature to date.
Tartaglia says she is worried about how the game of hockey has evolved, potentially exposing players to more serious injuries.
The game got faster, people are off the ice very, very quickly, and people are hitting each other at very, very high speeds, which was not the case in the past. So I think people of today really have to take a look at the game, see how the game has changed, and see whether they're not actually at higher risk of concussions, even if there's no longer the goon hockey of the past, where people were actually on the ice fighting.
After dozens of complaints before an American court, the NHL, an organization worth $4.5 billion, proposed a compensation of up to $22,000 for the 318 former players in the lawsuit. To some, it's an insulting amount.
$22,000 is not reasonable. It's a very, very small amount. Some would even consider it a nuisance amount of money for someone just to go away. But if they've got ongoing problems, then I would say take a seriously hard look at whether or not you want to pursue the NHL on your own. However, please understand that they're going to put a defense in front of you. They're going to fight it for a very long time. It's going to be extremely expensive and difficult at times to face.
The NHL didn't respond to any of our interview requests. Several former players vowed to continue fighting the case and one day have the league fully acknowledge the history and impact of concussions in professional hockey.
This week in El Salvador, a rape victim who was charged with attempted murder after giving birth to her abuser's baby was found not guilty and freed from jail. 20-year-old Imelda Cortez had suffered years of sexual abuse from her stepfather, and the decision to prosecute her had prompted outrage around the world. Her acquittal is a rare decision in El Salvador, one of a handful of countries in the world where abortions are completely banned and carry heavy prison sentences. Selena Sykes has the details.
A huge relief for Imelda Cortez. Having spent the last 18 months behind bars, the young woman is finally free after being accused of the attempted murder of her newborn baby. A significant victory for women's rights activists and her legal team in a country with strict abortion laws.
The judge said Imelda was a victim of repeated sexual violence, and that explains her behaviour during the birth. We're satisfied and think this case will set an important precedent. The judicial authorities are starting to analyse cases from another perspective and in benefit of women's rights.
In April last year, Imelda was hospitalised for a hemorrhage. Doctors suspected she'd attempted to perform an abortion and informed the police, as is legally required in El Salvador. While conducting a search at Imelda's home, authorities found a newborn in a toilet. The premature baby girl was rushed to hospital and survived. Imelda was immediately detained. In court, she admitted to neglecting her newborn baby to avoid a harsher sentence. But the court ultimately decided that she was not guilty of any crime. Imelda fell pregnant after being repeatedly raped by her stepfather over 7 years. El Salvador is one of a handful of countries in the world with a total ban on abortion. Any loss of a baby, whether abortion or miscarriage, is considered aggravated murder, carrying a 30 to 50-year prison sentence.
Meanwhile, in Brazil, a faith healer accused of sexually abusing more than 300 women turned himself in one day after being officially named a fugitive. The man known as John of God became a celebrity 6 years ago after a profile by American TV host Oprah Winfrey. He's now facing up to 15 years in prison. Yuka Royer reports.
He calls himself John of God. Fervent followers travelled to his temple in Abadiana in central Brazil, hoping to see him perform miracles.
When I was 8, God gave me this energy. I believe in God, and the power to heal comes from Him.
Since the 1970s, the spiritual leader, whose real name is João Teixeira de Faria, received hundreds of believers each week at his clinic. A 2013 Oprah Winfrey documentary brought him international fame. But now the 76-year-old's image has changed from that of a miracle healer to one of a sexual predator and fraudster. A number of women came forward accusing him of sexual abuse and rape. They said Faria took them into his private office, pretending to offer them a spiritual cleansing.
I'm innocent.
An arrest warrant was issued, and when he failed to show up at a court hearing after allegedly withdrawing millions of dollars from his bank account, Faria was officially declared a fugitive. He then turned himself in. Prosecutors have focused on about 15 cases, but hundreds more women have spoken about similar experiences. The self-styled healer had previously been convicted of conducting medical acts without a license. Faria has said the spirits of qualified doctors entered his body and performed surgeries.
We'll leave you with that. Thanks so much for watching this Inside the Americas. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.